The World Trade Center Twin Towers were extraordinary achievements of technology, and far more so was their destruction. This is a series of videos that will present the best and highest quality evidence available to show what physically happened on the day of their demise. My name is Marius Oltean. I'm an independent researcher. I hold a doctorate in mathematical physics, and I work as a university lecturer in mathematics. No single event in known history was witnessed by more human beings than 9/11. No single day in known history has been more exhaustively documented. And yet, most human beings do not know what physically happened on this day. This series of videos will bring forward the best available evidence to show that. This evidence will reveal an extraordinary story. The story of the fate of 7 buildings in downtown Manhattan, their occupants, the first responders, and all that took great risk to document the historic events on the morning of the 11th of September 2001. 9/11 was a crime. As such, any investigation into it must follow the correct process of crime solving. This comprises 3 steps, applied by crime-solving professionals every day, that must be carried out in order. First, you must determine what happened by gathering clues, data, evidence. In other words, knowledge, from as wide a variety of sources as possible. Nothing can proceed correctly if you do not have first the knowledge of what actually took place. Second, with this knowledge in hand, you can proceed to an understanding of how it happened, by what method, what type of technology, etc. This step is about applying logical analysis to the data gathered in the previous step and eliminating contradictions. Then, and only then, based on this understanding, can you proceed to the final step. Determine who and why they did it. You can then wisely and justly do something about it. But first, you have to know what it is. This series of videos will be about this first step in the case of 9/11. What happened? Occasionally, it will steer a bit into the second step and offer some general logical inferences regarding how it happened. However, at no point will this series address the questions of who or why they did it. These latter questions are of such monumental significance for the human race that engaging with them requires first a firm foundation in the knowledge of what exactly it was that was done. And that's what this series will offer. In this first episode, as an introduction, we're going to look at 11 things you probably didn't know about 9/11. The full set of slides, which include hyperlinked references, can be downloaded in PDF format through my website, Anarcho-Knowledge.com. Viewers should be shocked by each of the following 11 things. That is, unless they are already familiar with the work of Dr. Judy Wood, and in particular, her book, Where Did the Towers Go? Evidence of Directed Free Energy Technology on 9/11, published in 2010. This book is the first, and thus far only, detailed scientific investigation into the events at the World Trade Center on 9/11. Judy Wood holds a doctorate in engineering and is a former professor of engineering at Clemson University in South Carolina. If you are a human being living on the planet Earth, that alone is more than enough reason for you to get a hold of this book and read it. You may do so through the book's website, wheredidthetowersgo.com. A PDF version of the book is also accessible through the Internet Archive at the link provided here. This book has been the main inspiration for this video series. So, let's get into it. Here are 11 things that you probably didn't know about 9/11. Number 1. The towers turned to dust in midair. This is the single most important fact regarding the events of 9/11. Here we are looking at two images of the demise of World Trade Center 1. What we are witnessing in both of these images is the building material actually becoming dust. Focus on the piece of the building falling in the foreground of the image on the right, which is a steel piece that used to be part of the exterior wall of the building. It may very well be the exact same piece highlighted here in the image on the left. What we are seeing is this piece trailing thick clouds of dust as it is falling. Indeed, it is becoming dust. It is turning into dust as it is falling. Let's have a look at one of the clearest available videos of the demise of World Trade Center 1, the same building we were looking at in the previous images. This video comes from eyewitnesses Tim Main and Mike Balu, and only shows the top half of the tower, as the bottom half is obscured from view. Let's have a look. Notice that after the main part of the building goes away, there remains, temporarily standing, a cluster of core steel columns of the building. Watch what happens to them. They turn into dust before our very eyes. Let's look at that again. Number 2. There was extremely little debris left at the World Trade Center site. Here we are looking at two images, again, of World Trade Center 1, from the exact same position and with the same orientation, before and after its demise, permitting us a very clear visual comparison between all that was there before and what was left after. Moreover, the image on the right is set to scale with the image on the left and is taken on the very afternoon of 9/11. We can see that the debris pile from the demise of the tower did not even fill the lobby. A very similar sight was seen with World Trade Center 2. For a comparison, in a conventional controlled demolition, the height of the debris pile is about 12% of the original height of the building. In this case, a generous estimate would be to say that the height of the debris pile was no more than 4% of the original building's height. Judy Wood, in fact, estimates this to be about 2%. Nor could the building material all have gone into the basement. The reason for this, as we will see throughout this video series, is that the towers were built next to the Hudson River and required, around the basement area, a slurry wall that went all the way down to the bedrock to prevent the river from flooding it. If the building material had gone into the basement, it would have ruptured this wall, which did not happen, and the consequence would have been that downtown Manhattan would have been flooded, which did not happen. Number 3, there was dust and paper everywhere across southern Manhattan. These are just two images to show what the site looked like, and we will be seeing many, many more examples of this throughout this video series. All of southern Manhattan was covered, as if by snow, with a thick layer of ultrafine dust mixed in with paper. Indeed, this is where most of the building material went, if it was not blown away by the wind. The Twin Towers were major office buildings and filled with paper. None of the paper from the towers burned in the 9/11 event. All of the paper ended up mixed in with the debris that littered the streets. Number 4. The seismic reading from the demise of each of the buildings at the World Trade Center site on 9/11 was extremely weak and caused by weight being lifted off the ground. Here we have a comparison between the controlled demolition of the Seattle Kingdom and the demise of World Trade Center 1, with the images set to scale. The demolition of the Kingdom is one of the most famous and studied controlled demolitions in history. The Seattle Kingdom was a famous stadium in Seattle, Washington, that stood to a height of 76 meters and was demolished in 2000. The seismic magnitude from this demolition was 2.3 on the Richter scale. In comparison, the demise of World Trade Center 1, which stood to a height over 5 times greater than that of the Kingdom, produced a seismic magnitude that was the same, 2.3 on the Richter scale. Taking into account that the tower had not only more than 5 times the height of the kingdom, but also more than 5 times its weight, the total energy should be at least 25 times greater in the case of the demise of the tower compared to the demolition of the kingdom. Judy Wood, in fact, estimates this to be about 30 times higher. So we should expect the seismic magnitude, which is a measure of energy, to reflect this ratio. Because the Richter scale is not a linear scale, Judy Wood estimates the expectation from the demise of World Trade Center 1 should be something like 3.7 on the Richter scale. Not only this, but an analysis of the actual seismic waves reveals that the form of these waves, in the case of the demise of World Trade Center 1 and 2 and 7, were not due to material striking the ground. They were not types of waves generated from the actual impact of the weight of the buildings with the ground. Instead, these waves were generated by material being lifted off the ground. They were vibrations of the earth caused by the sudden disappearance of weight on top of it. Number 5. All 7 World Trade Center buildings were destroyed on 9/11, and all of them in unusual ways. Here we have an overhead image of the World Trade Center site after 9/11, with the original boundaries of each of the buildings indicated with dashed lines. As we have already seen, World Trade Center 1 is essentially completely missing, as is World Trade Center 2. But, moreover, World Trade Center 3 and World Trade Center 7 are also basically completely missing as well. As for the remaining 3 buildings, World Trade Center 4, 5, and 6, all of them sustained extremely unusual damage. In the case of World Trade Center 4, we can see that almost the entire building has gone missing. The main body of it is not present. Only the northern wing survives. Moreover, this northern wing is cut off at an exact line that seems to align with the northern boundary of World Trade Center 2. In the case of World Trade Center 5 and World Trade Center 6, we see also extremely unusual damage. We have holes in each of these buildings going all the way down to the ground. None of this damage can be explained by debris falling from the demise of the towers. The following fact is avoided by many 9/11 researchers due to its delicate and traumatic character. Nonetheless, out of respect for the 9/11 victims, as well as due to the importance of the evidence that this supplies to the 9/11 story, we will look at it in great depth in this video series. Number 6. Hundreds of people fell from the towers, many of which were seen to, quote, disintegrate, end quote. We are going to look now at some quotes from eyewitnesses describing what they saw in terms of the falling people. I warn viewers that the descriptions are very disturbing and very graphic. I invite viewers to read these for themselves. Number 7. Remains of 40% of the victims at the World Trade Center have not been identified. According to the official account, there were 2,753 victims in total at the World Trade Center on 9/11. Only for 60% of these were bodies, or much more often body parts, recovered that could be identified to them, in most cases by DNA only. That means that for 40% of victims, that's 1,100 people, nothing was recovered that could be identified to them. Here are a few further figures that should be troubling to viewers. Only 16 of all of these victims were identified by remains viewed. A little less than 300 whole bodies were recovered. That's a little more than 10% of the total number of victims. And over 20,000 body parts were recovered. That's an average of 8 body parts per person. Number 8. There were strangely damaged vehicles up to half a kilometer away from the World Trade Center. That's about a third of a mile. Here we have only 3 such examples, and we will be looking at a lot more of these throughout this video series. In the image on the left, we see a very strangely damaged police car, where we have the entire front half of the car damaged beyond any recognition, while the entire back half of the car is virtually intact, with a perfect boundary between the two. In the middle image, we are looking at a strangely damaged fire truck, and I want in particular to draw viewers' attention to all of the pieces of paper that are stuffed into all of the cracks, nooks, and crannies at the front of this fire truck. How did they get there? In the image on the right, we are looking at what used to be a bus, destroyed all the way down to its skeleton. Neither fire nor collision with falling debris could account for any of these effects. Nor could they account for the following. Number 9. Some vehicles were flipped upside down. Here we have 6 such examples. Now, if you're starting to think this is getting weird, you ain't heard nothing yet. It gets much weirder. Number 10. Hurricane Erin was close to and heading towards New York, but turned around on 9/11. In the image on the left, we have a satellite photo taken by NASA on 9/11. And we know that it's on 9/11 because if we zoom in on New York, which is in the red box, we can see the dust being blown away by the wind from the World Trade Center site. And right next to it, there is this huge hurricane, Hurricane Erin, which was the first and longest-lived Atlantic hurricane of the 2001 season. It was a Category 3 hurricane and indeed reached its largest size as well as its closest proximity to New York City on 9/11. We have a map from the Canadian Hurricane Center showing the path of Hurricane Erin. We can see that the hurricane was on a straight line course heading towards New York City, but on the morning of 9/11 turned around and headed the other way. Remember that a hurricane is associated with an electromagnetic field. Number 11. Deviations in the Earth's magnetic field on 9/11 correlated with the events at the World Trade Center. Here we have a plot created by Judy Wood from data obtained from 6 magnetometer stations in Alaska, showing the deviations in one of the components of the Earth's magnetic field relative to the average value at each location. The values are in nanotesla, and just to give you an idea, the deviations we are talking about here are within approximately 10% of the average values. The plot begins on the morning of September 10th, and for that entire day, as well as the early morning of September 11th, we can see that the values remained relatively constant. Let's zoom in to see more clearly what happened on the morning and afternoon of 9/11. We can see significant changes in the deviations of the magnetic field correlating with each of the major events at the World Trade Center, beginning with the whole event in World Trade Center 1, where we have a dip in the deviations. Shortly after that, we have a peak that correlates with the whole event in World Trade Center 2. After that, we have a resonance between the 6 different readings with a possible dip in the middle correlating with the Pentagon event. And once the demise of World Trade Center 2 occurs, there is a dramatic fall in these deviations, ending with the demise of World Trade Center 1. Only following the demise of World Trade Center 7 do the 6 readings begin again to stabilize. And following this, there is a resonance pattern between them. This screen recaps the 11 things that we have looked at in this video and that you probably didn't know about 9/11 before watching it. Viewers might be wondering, what about the Pentagon and Shanksville events? It is well known that these two events have far less evidence available for them compared with the World Trade Center. Many of the same characteristics can be found here. However, there is far less data to study them. For this reason, the focus of this series will be on the World Trade Center. To finish off this video, I would like to leave viewers with the best references on 9/11. These references have been the most influential in the creation of this video series, and I encourage all of you to check them out. We've already highlighted Judy Wood's book, Where Did the Towers Go?, as the definitive, authoritative source in this area. All of you should read it. As an excellent summary thereof, and perhaps an adequate precursor to reading the book itself, there are many great presentations given by Judy Wood outlining the main findings and available throughout video platforms. Here I recommend one given by her in 2012 in the Netherlands at a conference called the Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference. The title of the presentation is Evidence of Breakthrough Energy on 9/11, the Dawn of a New Age. The best documentary series on this information is 9/11 Alchemy, created by Chris Hampton. There are 3 films in this documentary series. Volume 1, Free Energy and Free Thinking, from 2017. Volume 2, Facing Reality, from 2018. And Volume 3, A Big Idea, from 2021. The first 2 focus on the physical evidence from 9/11 and are most pertinent to the focus of this video series. Volume 3 goes further and addresses the who and why questions that were laid out at the beginning of this video, once the what and how questions are understood. And in particular, this third volume, A Big Idea, looks at the connections between 9/11 and the occult. 2 other prominent researchers in this area are Andrew Johnson and Richard D. Hall. Andrew Johnson's website is checktheevidence.com, where he explores a variety of topics, including 9/11, and he is the author of the 2 most prominent books in support of Judy Wood's research. They are 9/11 Finding the Truth and 9/11 Holding the Truth. PDF versions of both of these books are freely accessible at his website. Richard D. Hall is an accomplished journalist, and his work is published on his website, richplanet.net, where, among many other topics, he prominently features the work of Judy Wood, including many interviews, and he has also contributed original research to this area, in particular, an analysis of the flight path and videos of the alleged airplane that allegedly impacted World Trade Center 2. The most up-to-date version of this analysis can be seen in his show number 233, and I encourage viewers to check out this as well as all of his other shows. By far, the most extensive single reference available on what happened on 9/11 is the NIST 9/11 Vault, a dataset of raw audiovisual data published on the Internet Archive by the US government agency charged with the official investigation into the events of 9/11, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It is a collection of over 40,000 files, mainly photos and videos, amounting to over a third of a terabyte of data organized into 42 releases. I looked at every photo and every video accessible in this dataset. All of it. It is the objective of this video series to tell the story of 9/11 based largely on the best and highest quality audiovisual material selected from here. To my knowledge, no other major work on 9/11 has prominently highlighted and used this dataset in this way. There will be no basic findings that are not already in Judy Wood's work. What this series will do is to further strengthen those findings with additional evidence gathered from this dataset. I encourage all viewers to recognize that anyone could be lying to you about anything. And if you are this far into this video, you probably know that. Therefore, while the works of other researchers can serve as a valuable guide, if you want to know the truth, you have to look directly at the raw data for yourself. And here is where you can find a lot of it, all in one place. Don't believe anything or anyone. Check the evidence for yourself and reach your own conclusions. On the next episode of 9/11, What Happened? We will look at what was the World Trade Center, the basics of its layout, physical features, and how it was built. This is indispensable prerequisite knowledge for the story of what happened to it on 9/11. Thank you for your time and attention, and see you in episode 2 of 9/11, What Happened?
The right track is don't believe anybody. Okay. Don't believe me. Don't believe anyone. You got to go out and you got to get proof in your hand before you can believe anything. And to do otherwise today is the biggest mistake that anyone can ever make.